What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another exciting episode. Today we are taking a look at the new Working Class Zero Tyrant 10. So if you guys are ready, let's get right into today's video.
Oh my God. Got it. One little out here, dude. Yes, dude, he came off into the net. Dude,
On the pause.
On the pause.
On the let's leave.
Tyrant, on the let's leave. Tyrant fish.
Give me a photo.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yay! What kind of fish is that?
This is my bait.
Oh! I thought it was a fish.
Holy shit. Tyrant fish. First one. Absolutely smoked it. Missed one there earlier. Gave it some time. Came back. As you saw, that first cast was really bad. Reeled it up. Made a much better cast. Was reeling it nice and slow. Speed up, and boom. That fish absolutely smoked it. That was sick. Not a huge belly, but nice frame. Nice, gorgeous fish. Thick all the way down. Absolutely smashed that Tyrant. So dope. So the Working Class Zero Tyrant 10. I've had this bait now for close to a year, if not a year now. And when I first got this bait from Gilbert, I kind of just didn't understand the bait. The concept of it was completely different than anything I'd ever really fished before. And that was a soft bait, much higher in the water column, basically right on the surface. And at first, when I was fishing it in like August and September, I wasn't getting really any reactions, or the fish were following it kind of weird, and I just didn't understand it. I was seeing my buddy Jared, who we'll talk to a little bit later, and he was absolutely smashing them that time of year, and I was like, dude, what is wrong with me or the fish or the bait? Like, it just didn't make sense to me. But it wasn't until I talked to Gilbert where Gilbert was like, yeah, dude, Jared's on like his own thing. Like, I don't even pay attention to him. I fish my bait in the colder months of the year, so during like the actual trout season. I was like, oh, perfect. So once the water temperature, he said, dropped like below 64, he seemed to find that they would eat this bait a lot better than when the water was a lot warmer. So with that knowledge, I was like not so stressed out about not really figuring out the bait. And it wasn't until in the fall, around like mid to late October, is when I started to get some action on this bait. The first fish I caught on this bait was in October, and I was starting to see it like kind of like a light switch go off, that once the water was starting to get colder and colder, this style of bait, a bait that just, you reel it up top, you can give it a couple little pops, but just on a straight retrieve, the fish, they turn from wanting to like follow it, maybe swirl on it, miss it, to just fully committing and smashing this bait. So it did seem like, okay, I just gotta wait for the perfect time. The reason why I bring this up is this isn't a bait for beginners. This is a bait for guys that are looking for something different at very, very certain times of the year. Now, like I said before, my buddy Jared, he seems to catch them all year round on this bait, but that's his fish. My fish are completely different than his fish. Gilbert's fish are different than mine, and they will do very different things with this bait. So it's a bait that you have to spend actually a lot of time figuring out where it's gonna work best for your waters and how your fish are gonna eat it. Earlier this year, I was able to fish with Gilbert and I was able to fish with Jared, and both of those guys fished the bait completely and wildly different. Really, Gilbert likes to fish his stuff much higher in the water column. Earlier this year, I actually was able to really watch what he does. He caught a bunch of fish on it, and I was really, really impressed with his technique and how he was able to hone in like exactly how the fish wanted the bait. It was really, really awesome to see. Then I was fishing with Jared, and he's telling me like, oh, I don't fish it like Gilbert at all. I fish it completely different. I fish it much lower in the water column, which is like a foot or 6 inches, 8 inches, but not right up on the surface. He found that if he dropped the bait a little bit lower in the water column, they committed to the bait a lot better. So it's a bait that you can fish both high, you could fish it a little bit lower, you could fish it in the middle of the water column. A couple of the bites that I've gotten on this bait were actually skipping it under docks, letting the bait sink maybe 5 to 10 feet, and then start working the bait out, and then they'd bite it. So I noticed that my fish, they don't really come all the way to the surface to eat a lure. They will at certain times, but I found that if I was able to sink the bait down and get it really more in their faces, they ate the bait. It's an awesome bait. It's completely different than how I've really fished any other bait in the past, and it has results for me. Again, it's not a bait that I fish every day, that I catch fish on every day, but there's definitely certain places and certain areas and certain times of the year where this bait I find is actually really, really awesome. Now, looking at this bait, you might not even see it, but there is a hook on this bait. You can't see it. It's not up top. There's not 4 different hooks on this thing. There is just one hook, and it rides under here on the belly. And that's it. It is very, very well hidden with this wire keeper, wire stinger here that you have on the bait to this little pocket that the hook kind of sits in. And that's it. That's all that the bite you get on that hook. Now, a lot of guys are gonna look at that and be like, how the heck are you hooking any fish at all? And you'd be surprised. The fish that I've noticed that eat my lure, my fish, what they do is when they come up to eat this bait, they don't eat it back here. They don't eat it back here. They come up to the head and they eat the head. And when they eat the head, and they eat it good, how you want the fish to do it, and you set the hook well, that hook will pop out and you'll actually hook the fish. And where I've noticed that I've hooked the fish is always somewhere like around here in the corner of the lip, which is really the most perfect place to actually hook a fish. So a big reason obviously for why that hook is that small and very well concealed is because Gilbert, he wanted to be as stealthy as possible. So the wire rides super tight to the chin of the bait. The hook is in that slot, and it just doesn't give off any bad vibes or nuances where there's giant dangling treble hooks or anything that's like to the fish would be like, oh, there's something weird about this. It's very, very natural. And when you're fishing this bait, you do for the most part fish it on the slower side. And so it gives the fish time to come up to the surface and really inspect it before eating it. And if you're fishing in clearer water, like some days we get lucky out here and we get to fish that 5 or 6 foot visibility, but when you go out to Southern California or sometimes out in Texas, those guys are fishing 10, 15 foot visibility. So when those fish come up to look at this bait, they're inspecting it, they're making sure like, all right, this thing's pretty legit, and then they eat the bait. So having the hook that concealed, it just doesn't give off any bad presence or any notions to the fish that this bait might be fake. But again, you will hook fish on this bait if you fish it. Working Class Zero had a drop of these, I believe had 2 drops of these now. And what was nice is that if you wanted it to be fished any different way, you possibly can do it. You can have it rigged beast hook, you can have it rigged up top, you can have it rigged underneath, like I have it here as a floater. There's many different ways you can fish this bait. Gilbert, he really designed the bait to be fished high, but he has found success as well fishing it on the bottom. So he'll have the top rig version. If you guys want to see how he has those baits rigged, I'll leave a link to a video of his rigging video. It's really good. Obviously I was the one shooting it, so of course it was amazing. But he goes over the different ways that you can rig it, and it's really dope the ways that you can fish this bait, exactly where you can get it. You can basically fish this bait anywhere you want to get those bites, and it's just something different. All right, I'm gonna run through some of the retrieves that I do with this bait, kind of give you guys a look at it, what it looks like in the water, and why these fish eat it so good. Now, a more normal retrieve that I like to do is still kind of that same slow retrieve, but every once in a while I'm gonna be giving it like a quick little pop like that in the rod. And every time I give it a pop, it kind of just shoots. And you see that the tail catches water and it kind of makes like a little jolt. And when it makes that jolt, one of the things that I've noticed is that it seems to attract the fish. Something on the surface, it gives like a little plop, and it seems like the fish go crazy over that. Especially watching Gilbert fish his bait out in SoCal, he would give it those little pops, and dude, the fish would climb all over the bait. Now, the other way that he also likes to fish it is instead of that pop, he'll give it like a quick little, and it'll shoot. And that little jolt, I also watched him catch a lot of fish doing that as well. Now, when I'm fishing around like docks and stuff like that, what I like to actually do is I like to kind of get it going, and it gets just below the little surface. And then I'll start giving it little speed ups. And why I do that when I fish around docks is because when you're fishing a dock, there's a little bit of the dock that goes into the water. So when you're fishing it high up on the surface, sometimes the fish just cannot see the bait. So getting the bait further down there just by 4 or 8 inches might be the difference maker to catch fish. Now what I'll end up doing is just adding like little 2-gram nail sinkers up here in the front so it keeps that nose down, and it's just a lot easier to get that bait to go under that 8 to 12 inches to get those bites. There's a lot of different ways you can play with this bait. That's just how I like to fish mine, how it was kind of intended to. You can obviously fish it on the bottom. I haven't had much luck fishing it on the bottom, but I saw Gilbert literally catch a high 12-pounder fishing the Tyrant on the bottom. So it seems like either way you fish this bait, you can get some really, really big bites. But for sure, it was meant to be fished more up on the surface to give them something that looks different. Now, the setup that I've been fishing with the bait has either been just a normal extra heavy rod or a heavy rod, anywhere from 8 foot to 8'6". The bait weighs like 5.5, 6 ounces or so. So anything in that 1 to 7 ounce range or that 2 to 8 ounce range is gonna handle this bait really well. You don't need a faster rod. You can just use like a normal glide bait rod just because the bait does have that treble hook. You do still need to set the hook hard when you get the bites, but you don't need a super fast rod. The reel that I've been fishing has been the Daiwa Tatula 300. This is in a 6.3 gear ratio. A slower gear ratio is gonna be a lot better with this bait, I think. I know Gilbert also fishes it on a much slower gear ratio. The faster you go, you can work it, but again, the bait was meant to be fished at a slower pace with quick speed ups. So you can get that slow retrieve on that slower gear ratio without having to actually think about, oh, I need to slow down because I'm fishing it too fast. The line, I fish 20-pound fluorocarbon on the bait. I know Jared and Mike will also sometimes fish 17-pound on certain applications, but I think 20-pound fluorocarbon is basically the way to go with this bait. And one really cool thing with this bait that I honestly did not expect was that it casts really, really good. Into wind, going with the wind, it seemed like it didn't matter. The bait casts really, really well. Speak of the devil, we have Jared Swafford himself. What's going on, dude?
What up, y'all?
Dude, talk to us about the Tyrant 10. You've had the Tyrant 10 now for, what, a year and a half at this point? Maybe.
Yeah, almost on 2 years.
Jeez, so you've had the bait a long time.
Yeah.
What has been your experiences with this bait overall?
When I first got the bait, here, let's see. This is the first one I ever got. I fished it
Oh my God.
a bottom bounce, beast hook, 12-aught.
Yep.
Just big, wintertime cruiser.
Oh,
I
yeah.
got the bait probably in the fall or winter. And I fished it really hard like this. I got bit on it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I struggle with setting the hook with a 12-aught beast hook. Mike says I got weak wrists or something.
Something like that.
I can't do it. Then in the spring, probably late February, right before spring, Mike sent me this one.
Okay, that one's
with the and he said rig this thing with the treble hook, and he sent me just a bunch of hooks with wire.
Yep.
And didn't give me any instructions.
And that was it.
That was it. And I was like, okay. And then he's like, I'm like, Mike, is this thing supposed to float? He's like, yes. I'm like, it's a soft bait that floats on the surface.
Yeah.
He's like, yes. Fish it that way. And I thought, at the time, I was like, that is dumb.
Right. I thought the same thing.
Big, giant wake bait. In my head, it goes against everything that I thought I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And first day out with this bait, as a floater, in like 25 feet of water, I caught an 11-pound, 13-ounce bass.
Jesus Christ, dude.
And I was, alright, I get it. And I fished it like that from then on out as primarily a bottom hook floater.
Okay,
And that's taught me about 95% of my Tyrant fish.
Would you say that Mike, when designing this bait, that was kind of the idea that he was going with, was that he meant for it to be a topwater lure?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just a totally different approach than what most people do with a big wedge-tail soft bait.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's nice though, because I was telling everybody that he designed it to be up top, but you can fish it so many different ways as well.
For sure.
You know?
I mean, even like, the dudes that are running it, top hook stinger.
There you go.
And,
Yep.
For us guys who struggle with maybe a 12-aught beast hook, that's the way to go. You're going to stick them with that stealthy little hook.
Oh yeah, for sure. Now.
And essentially, you got a hard bait on the hook set. You just kind of lean into it
Right.
and swing.
Yeah. So you say that when you set the hook on this bait, it's not like this giant soft bait hook set that we're used to, right?
No, I'm giving a weak little.
And that's all it takes, right?
Yeah, one little number 2 hook.
Yep.
It's a little treble.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to crank them. That hook goes in so easy. I know that Mike still cranks them. I know that Ian still cranks them. I know there's a lot of dudes that probably still swing hard.
Yeah.
It scares me to swing hard because I don't know.
No.
I don't want to break off. I
Right.
don't want to lose the fish. And as we spoke earlier, I have not lost a single tyrant fish that I hooked up with.
That's crazy. That's a really good
Hookup ratio
percentage.
is damn near perfect when they commit to the bait.
Yeah, that's insane. Now,
Yeah.
the way you fish your tyrant, the number one way, like how you caught your 11 and some of these other fish that I've been showing, what has been your favorite way to fish it? Because you don't fish it the same way as Mike, and you and I, we don't fish the same bait the same way as well. So what has been your go-to way to fish the tyrant?
I like fishing around docks a lot. I like fishing underneath low-hanging trees. I like fishing almost in areas where you would kind of apply a K9 to fish structure or a glide bait to fish around structure. I like those real tight spots, and I like a subtle slow retrieve with maybe 2 or 3 speed ups in the retrieve.
Okay. Now,
Yeah, and I know that you and Mike like a little bit of a burn pause reaction kind of thing.
yeah, I give it a lot of pops. I learned that from Gilbert. It's a lot of pops, but it seems like you do the speed ups as well. But what you taught me and what you were telling me when I first started fishing the bait was, oh, I'm not fishing it up on the surface. I'm actually fishing it like 6 inches below.
Yeah. I do a little more. Mine's almost set up as a low float, extra slow sink.
Got it. And you found
I
that.
can rod tip high and fish it on the surface,
Yeah.
or I can rod tip down and creep it below the surface.
And you found a lot of success creeping it just below the surface.
Yeah.
Now, I think a lot of people are going to be very skeptical about that tiny little hook, and it's one hook. How have you been noticing the fish eat the bait?
Head first every single time.
Yeah.
If it's a fish that is intending on eating the bait, like,
Yep.
I mean, look at the head on this one.
Yeah, that one's so messed up, dude.
You know, it's like, you'll get fish that will hit it in that midsection. You'll get fish that'll hit it, behind the hook.
Yeah.
But when they want to eat it, like they really want to eat it, they're going like this.
Yeah. Now, I've seen a lot of your fish, some of those bigger ones, they'll just come up from behind it and engulf the whole thing.
Yeah.
So show how
They disappear.
Yeah, the bait folds pretty well.
Yeah, it just collapses into nothing.
I mean, look how easy that is. Yeah. Yeah, so I think...
They suck it in.
Yeah, I think with Gilbert, I think, as much as you and I have talked to him, his biggest thing on soft baits is foldability.
Right.
That he's always saying like, oh, that bait doesn't fold, so you won't get a good hook set. And like, going through your mind, you're like, what does that even mean? But it isn't until you get a bait like this and it's rigged this way that you notice like, oh, because it folds so easy, the fish get hooked so much easier and so much better.
Yeah, the best thing about the bait, I think, honestly, is when you hook up with a good fish, the wire coming away from the bait, and all the leverage goes away.
Yeah.
Because the tyrant can flop around outside of its mouth, do whatever, but all of that leverage is on the wire and on the hook.
Yeah. It's honestly such an awesome bait to have. And I know Gilbert has been making different sizes. There's a 12-inch and a soon-to-be 8-inch. I know you fished the 8-inch recently. You've even caught fish on it. So I think there's going to be a bunch of different applications for each size. Some guys are going to like the 8-inch more than the 10-inch. Some guys are going to really dig the 12-inch. It's going to be a lot of different options for guys here in the future, because some people still think that this is too big of a bait for the waters, or they are fishing smaller bodies of water, or the fish are just keying in on different things as well. So I think the Tyrant overall is just an awesome bait. So thank you for talking, Jared. I hope you get your boat fixed soon.
I'm going to be in that thing until it does.
There you go. That is the legendary boat. John Boat Jared makes a return.
John Boat Jared.
All right, dude. Talk to you later.
All right, later, man.
Peace out, dude. So that is the Tyrant 10. It's an awesome bait. I know Gilbert has released this bait quite a bit recently, and I know they're out there, but it doesn't seem like guys are very much interested in fishing it. But hopefully once, fall rolls around, trout come back, that we see more guys implement it in this lure, because I think it can be a big, big game changer
for guys out there on the water. So if you guys have any other questions, leave them down with a comment below and I'll try and get to them. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, go out there and chase your dreams.